and you all have to say hello or yes to that one. And Apurva, it will, if she comes in, then we'll do her pictures. And I want to compliment all of you all. This is, I told you all last time, this is a rather unusual large class for basic photography. I usually only handle 5 people, but it, you know, you all just got in there and registered and it got away from me. And then when I went to Dropbox, everybody's got neat little folders and everybody's folders are named. And it was like, goodness gracious, girls. Yeah. So, you know, I really want to compliment you all. It's good. And it appears as though everybody at least tried, and that's really good. So I like that. Makes me happy as a teacher. So Eve, let's go ahead and begin. And by the way, I am on Bridge. And if you all don't know how to use Bridge, Adobe Camera Raw, or Lightroom, sign up for my class when I do that again. But Eve, I'm going to, let me get you up so I can see. I'm going to start with you, okay? And then let me make sure that I can do everything that I need to do. There we go. Whoops, I'm sorry. Okay, so Eve, this is yours and you will, whoops, I'm sorry. I just messed something up. Stop sharing my screen. There we go. Go back in. Hello, Apurva. Welcome. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I need to share my entire. There we go. Okay. Everybody can see Eve's pictures?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
super. Okay, so now we're in what's called Bridge. And this is where you do your processing. Okay, so Eve, in yours, we have got your beautiful little rainbow rainbow flower pot. And this is, here's your f-stop right over here. Here's your f-stop of 4.5. And then you can see, I'm going to turn this off for you all. There you go. And you can see we've got nice soft background right there. So you did exactly what you were supposed to do at 4.5. And then here's your 5.6. Not too much difference between 4.5 and 5.6, but you kept your light exactly the same, which means that you did the homework assignment exactly right. So you kept the light. And then this is your 6.3. And notice we still can't quite see your little gnome right here. And then here's your 8, and it's coming a little bit more in focus. And here's your 11, it's coming a little bit more in focus. And then here you are at your 16, and now we can now see this detail right there. And there you are at 22, and we can see the detail. So you did exactly what you were supposed to do. And then notice how all of the light is exactly the same. So you kept your scale right in the middle, did exactly what you're supposed to do. Any comments? Yeah. Any comments, Eve?
No, I practiced a lot. Those were my first shots, but I practiced a lot because this camera is new for me.
Yeah.
So I practiced, changing the settings and getting the settings to coordinate. So it was good practice for me.
Yeah, you did it. You absolutely did it. So it worked just fine. And notice that there's no drop off in light between any of the photographs. So that means you kept your scale right in the middle every single time.
Great job.
Good job.
Thank you.
There you go. And Apurva, you ready
Yes.
for yours? And you did something just a little bit different, but I think it's funny as all get out. Okay. So you put the little, you put the little guy on the swing.
Yeah, that was my husband's idea.
Yeah, that was what?
My husband's idea.
Your husband's idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you see how far away the background is. And remember that the closer you focus and the further the background is away, the more you can blow the background out of focus. So it's a combination of the two. The closer you focus and the further your background is away, then the more you can blow your background out of focus. So here you are once again at 4.5 right there. And then when we go to 5.6, once again, not much difference between 4.5 and 5.6. You still kept the light exactly the same. And then we come to 6.3, still not that much difference. But then once we go to 8, you're starting to see more difference in that background. That background's coming into detail. And there's that background coming into detail again. And there's the background coming into detail again. Now we can see that there's a bench back there at F16, but before that, we couldn't see that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then here we are at 22. And notice at 22, because the distance is so great, that even at 22, the background's not clear when you're focused this close. So good job on that one. Okay, and then you almost, is this the same thing or it just didn't work as well? You got it, Apurva? Is this the same thing or it just didn't work as well?
It's the same thing. So what happened was I forgot that I had a polarized filter. So the first set of pictures were actually with the polarized filter. From this picture onwards, it was without the filter.
It's without the polarizer, right?
Yeah.
And don't keep the polarizer if you own one on your lens. You only use it if you need it. And if
Yeah.
you rotate the front element of the polarizer and you see the
Right.
glare go away, then you need it.
Yeah.
If you don't see anything happen, change your angle to the sun, rotate it again. If you don't see anything happen, then take it off. Doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, we have a lot of trees in the backyard, so I was getting like shadows.
Yeah.
So I thought I might try it.
Yeah, and it's used more for glare as opposed to get rid of shadows. So here you are at 4.5. And then the little
So
guys.
I have to, yeah. The second time I tried it, it kept falling off.
Yeah, I noticed he's like making a dive for it and he's back up and then he's making a dive for it again. So I noticed that. And then he's back up at F8, but you notice at F8, we're starting to see more of the background and
Yeah.
much more of the background at F11. And then here we are at F16, much more of the background. And at 22, we've got a
It's
pretty
all of
cluttered, yeah, got a
Mhm.
pretty cluttered background back there. And you notice
Mhm.
how it was so much easier to look at the little guy here
Mhm.
without all that clutter. But then once we get to the 22 and everything's competing for our eye, then we
Mhm.
don't really know what to look for.
Yeah.
But once again, you kept all the balance, all the lights exactly the same. So you did a really good job on that one.
Thank you.
You are welcome. There we go. Okay. Jackie, you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so Jackie, on these, here you are at your 4.5. There you go. And we've got kind of soft going on back in here. And then your 5.6, but notice a little bit of change in the light. Slight bit. And then 7.1 kept your balance. Everything's looking really pretty, not much change there. And then here we go, 8. Once again, not much change, but you know, everything's getting a little crisper. And then here we're going at 11. Here's your f-stop right here, if I need to remind you on that one. And then here we're going at 16. And notice that now we can see the background. So for this distance, now we can see the background at 16. And then we get to 22. And once again, we can see the background. And then your lens went all the way to 29. So now we can see everything. Yeah. Yeah. Was it hard to balance the light meter inside like that, Jackie?
No, it wasn't. I was just surprised that the first one kind of came out dark.
Uh-huh.
But it was balanced on all of those pictures.
Okay.
And as you got higher, I think it was a nicer picture.
Yeah. 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 It's balanced really well. It looks good. You lined it up well. It's nice and straight. So you did a good job on that one. And then here's your water. And then over on the water, we're looking at shutter speed, and here's shutter speed right there. So this is a 250th of a second shutter speed. See where my cursor is? That's where your shutter speed is, right over there. Okay, so here's your 250. And you did this in the shade, right, Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah, to give yourself a little bit of flexibility. And then here's your 125th. And notice how much difference there is. I'm going to blow this up. Notice how much difference. This is the 250th. And then here's the 125th. Notice how much difference there is in that water just between 250 and 125th. And then here you've gone into your this is, oh, it's 1/60th of a second. So this one should have been 250.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
got that
can't
out of
see
order.
Very well.
Okay, I thought that I was getting them in order, but I maybe didn't. So that was the
Well,
1/60th.
That's because I should have done 60 and I did 160.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's what came next. Okay, understand. And now you go to 30. There you go. And look at this. The water is now just a stream at 30th of a second. And then you were able to get your 1/15th of a second. And here you are where the water is just a stream in there. So you blew out your not blew out your background, but you definitely showed that water stopped. Yeah, I blurred. And then you kept your light the same all the way through. So you did a good job. Pass that one.
All right. Thank you.
And then Linda, here's yours. Now you tried to do this at the beach. Let's see where's Linda? There you are. Okay. So this is your 250th. And we've got the water pretty well stopped. Who else tried the beach? Jackie, Vicky, you tried the beach.
I
too.
tried, yeah, I was at the bay.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So here's the water pretty well, we've got the wave kind of nice and solid there. And then this is the 1/25th of a second. So once again, we're kind of getting the good waves right there. Gulls stopped. And then here it is at the 60th of a second. And notice at 60th of a second, let me see if I can get in there at 100%. You've already cropped these. Here we go. Yeah, so we're getting a little bit of a blurring going on in there at 60th of a second. And
I
then
like the
here,
reflection of the bird.
pardon?
I like the reflection of the bird on the water.
Yeah, it's a pretty reflection. And
Yeah.
it's right here, it's a really nice reflection because the water is really stopped. Now this one I've got out of order, Linda. This is your 500th of a second. And so, we've got really, really crisp water going on in there. Right in here. So nice crisp water in there. And it's got a good reflection on the bird too. So it's looking good. So this is your 500th of a second. And now at 1/4 of a second, look how much blurring you've got at 1/4 of a second. So the gull ends up, the laughing gull ends up blurring on us. You notice that the reflection no longer has any detail on it. The reflection is also blurred. And then here's all the waves right in there. So at a 1/4 of a second, we've got a lot of movement that's being blurred out. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't put yours in the right order, Linda. And then here's 30th of a second. So we're beginning to blur, especially you can see it right back in there. And we've got an F10 now also, so you can see more of the waves out in the distance because of the F10. And then here's the F14, or excuse me, 15th of a second, F14. And not too much blurring, but you can see a fairly good amount of waves blurring right in that edge right there. And notice once again, that reflection doesn't have any detail in it. And here's your 1/8 of a second. Lots of blurring going on with the waves right there. See how much blurring in the waves at an 1/8 of a second. So what'd you find doing this one, Linda?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
What did you find doing this one?
I liked that one for the blur. I think I had to stop it down. Yeah, I had it at F22 and you can see it stopped down to F20.
Uh-huh. I mean, the
Because
whole
the light was-
exercise, the whole exercise in general with the waves and stuff.
I found it a little difficult because the waves weren't that big and I would have liked to have been closer to the waves. They were breaking out kind of far.
Uh-huh.
So I felt like I didn't get as much of an effect that I would have liked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did try some other areas. I did try over at the bay, but I wasn't getting much there. And so it is what it is, but I
Uh-huh.
was happy to blur it.
Yeah. And you were blurring your water, definitely blurring the water. So the difference between, where's your really fast one right there? The difference between the
Oh, yeah.
500th of a second and the 1/8 of a second, it's a big difference.
Yeah, the whole color and everything looks different.
Mhm.
And I mean, I was taking them one after another,
Yeah.
so everything changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Good job. Very good job. There you go. Okay, Renee, here's yours. And you had your dog that you were fighting.
Yeah. 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 We'll see how. They were a little bit of all over the place. I think this is
Yeah.
the one where I started with 250.
Yeah, this is
Right,
250.
ended. Yeah. But I don't recall.
And it's a little, it appears to be a little overexposed. So it's, just a little
I
bit.
definitely was having trouble with the lighting
Uh-huh.
because you could see that I was completely outside. I mean, obviously outside in the heat in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And so just trying to figure out, the lighting, getting my meter balanced was a bit of a challenge.
And this is 320. So on this one, your water, see how many, we got the splashes going on in here. So that's your 320. And then this one, I'm just going to darken this picture a little bit just so we can see it. There we go.
Oh, nice.
So Kathy, if you were taking these pictures under the circumstances she was, is this where you would have used a polarizer?
On this shot, I would have
Yes.
definitely used a polarizer because we've got so much glare on the water.
Right.
And this would also drop the light a little bit because a polarizer will drop the light by 1 or 2 stops, depending on which polarizer you're using. So this would have been a good example of where to play with it. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a 250. Here's your shutter speed right there. And then this one is a little faster. I blew it up for you at 320. Very good. And then this one, we come in, you're at 320 on this one also.
Yeah, it's just a different angle. It's like,
Just a
I'm on
different-
the other side. And
Yeah,
still there was
so-
splash in there.
We got some good splashing going on in there.
I don't remember.
And then this is 320 once again. So you just did a bunch of 320s for us. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, that's okay. That's
And
okay.
holding the dog.
I know, holding the dog, trying to keep him out of the fountain. And then you see that at 320, then that fountain gets stopped pretty well. So good job on that one. And then here you are on your
Yeah.
patio, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I realized I could have gotten much closer, right? The plant
Exactly.
Closer to me and had the
uh-huh,
wall and the pillows is what I was looking at. As it
Yes.
was out of focus. I
yes,
should have had more space between the two.
yeah. And because you're not as close as you could be to the little statue, then
Yeah.
that means that our depth of fields are doing a little bit different things. So the closer we are, the closer we are, the more compressed they're going to be. The further we are away from our subject when we focus, the less compressed they're going to be.
Gotcha. And it's almost like there's the plant being closer, the red being in the middle and the pillows in the back, right? It's almost like competing.
Well, you got diagonal composition. Yeah.
All right.
So-
So yeah, definitely closer would have been much better.
Much better for the exercise. So this
Yeah.
is 4.5 and this is 5.6. And notice how at a simple 5.6, the whole patio looks like it's in focus.
Mhm.
And simply because you're further away from your subject.
Right.
And then this is a
Learning.
7.1. And once again, the whole patio looks like it's in focus because you're further away from your subject.
Yeah.
And then here's your 8, and you're not losing any light. Everything's staying balanced. So you're balancing your light meter. Everything's looking exactly the same. And then here's your 16, and we're starting to get probably much more detail back in
Yeah.
here, this go around. And then here's your F22, and now we've got everything in focus.
Okay. So learning just to be closer to the
Be
subject.
closer. If you want to blow out that background and really
Right.
make it pronounced, then get closer
Yeah.
to your subject. Exactly. But you balanced your light meter. All the pictures look exactly the same.
Okay.
So you balanced your light meter. And then it's a good example of what happens if we're not super close to our subject versus if we are close to our subject.
Right. I can be a teaching moment.
Yes, exactly. Always a teaching moment on these homework assignments. Always a teaching moment. Okay.
Thank you.
Sarah, here's yours. Okay, and on Sarah, here's yours right here. Where are you? Let me get you back on the screen so I can look at you where you're doing. There you go. So here you are, and this is your 4.5.
Right.
And you can see that even the tail of the cat comes out of focus because you're so close to it.
Right. I think I was at like F8 or F11 before the entire cat even was in focus.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, when you're that close?
Yeah.
So here's your 4.5. Here's your 5.6, and notice no drop off in the light. So you're maintaining that balance. You're doing really well. And then here's your 6.3, beginning to at least see detail in the tail. And there's your 8. And at 8, now we can see detail all the way. Is the front paws aren't in focus yet.
No.
But we've got almost detail in the tail. Yeah.
I think it was F11 before even the whole cat was in focus.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? So, you can see the physics of the physics of this whole f-stop thing changing as we go from close focus to focusing a little way further away. But you're doing a great job because you're balancing your light meter every single time because all of them look exactly alike. And now we can finally see the details back here in the background at your F22. So you did a really, really good job on that because there's no fall off on the light. You did exactly what you were supposed to do, and it illustrates the point really, really well.
Yeah, I had a little trouble with the light because I was out like maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, but already the sun was intense and I was specifically on the shady side of the house. That's why the garage door for the background. But I selected, not thinking at the time, a shiny reflective surface to photograph. So I was looking at highlights as I was doing it, and I didn't really know how well it would come out because even being in the shade, because it was so bright, even at 8 a.m. and
Yeah.
it was a reflective surface, I was still getting highlights on the cat.
Yeah. You did fine. And I'm going to turn on my highlight indicator up here, and there's nothing on the cat that's showing.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it would show red if there was anything that was blown out.
Well,
So you
actually, I
did-
had it on zebra, and it
Oh,
was,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So you did a great job on that one. And then your treat, you sent me a picture of your cat.
Well, because it looks so much like yours.
It does. It looks just like mine. Exactly. He's got a little bit wider ruff up here. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah. He or she?
she.
She. And what's
Annie.
her? Annie?
Annie.
Okay. Yeah. She's really pretty. She's really pretty. Yeah. So good job on that one. And then here's your water. And this is your 2/50th of a second. And blow this up right here. And you see we've got a nice water drop completely stopped.
Mhm.
So that one looks real good. And then here we go to the 1/25th of a second. And now you notice that those water drops are starting to blur out on that side right there. And then here we go to the 60th of a second. And now it's just steady streams right there. And we've still got bubbles at 60th of a second. So the bubbles were interesting on this photo that you sent. And then here we are at 30th of a second, right over here. And notice we're at steady stream, but we still have some bubbles that are forming. 15th of a second. And notice how much the water is really blurring down in here. And then coming off that little lip right there, that's just blurring like crazy. So good illustration. And then here we come into the 1/8 of a second. And you notice that we still have the bubbles over here. And that's because the bubbles aren't really moving once they form. They kind of stay still a little bit.
Right.
But your light's remaining exactly the same. And then you get all the way to 1/4 of a second. And now we're getting really nice blurring going on in there.
Yeah, I couldn't get to 1/2 of a second because I was already at F22.
Yeah, yeah,
And-
yeah.
I had, this was about 5:30 because that's what time the fountain is in the shade. Mostly it's still getting some sun streaks. I did this earlier in the day when the fountain was in the sun, and I think I only got to like 1/30th of a second.
Mhm.
It was just too bright. And
Too
even
bright.
now you can see, the background kind of hurts your eyes.
Yeah, 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 exactly. But it's a great job. You balanced your light meter on both of them, no drop off in light on any of them, and illustrates it really well. You did great.
If in real life you were doing this and you wanted a nice shot where the background didn't hurt your eyes, would you have used an ND filter?
An ND filter really wouldn't have helped you because
Oh,
all,
okay.
all that the ND filter is going to do is a neutral density filter is what this is. It just darkens the scene. So if we
So it would have
arrived,
darkened- Yeah,
if we arrived at a waterfall and we were there in the middle of the day, but we still wanted to blur the water, then we could put an ND filter on that would darken the scene, and then we could get our longer shutter speed.
Mhm. What if your waterfall was in the shade, but for some reason your background was super bright like this? You wouldn't get it.
Nope,
Okay,
no. Post processing is the only way to save that.
okay.
Yeah, but to say that, I'm going to turn my highlight indicator back on and see, this is what blows out. This is your blinking on the
Mhm.
back of your histogram when we're looking at your histogram. So all this red stuff right here is what's blinking. So then you would have to make sure that you photographed it so that none of the detail in the background was blinking at you, or
Yeah.
your red highlights on Lightroom and Photoshop. And then I could fix it in post-processing.
Okay, but I would, I would have had to have turned the shutter speed much faster to make that happen, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
It's, if the light is perfect, then we're like, whoa.
There, I guess, the point is there's only so many modifications you can make when you don't have the proper lighting.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. Good job. Okay, Vicky, here's yours. Okay. So Vicky, you are at 4.5 on this one. And we got nice detail, but you can see your soft background back there. And then 5.6, not much change. Once again, kept your light the same. 6.3, not much change. Hair difference in the light, but not much. But that also could be the sun moving in the clouds and that type of stuff. Yeah. And then here's your 8. And we're starting to see the windows and the detail. And then here comes your F11. And now we can start seeing more straight lines back in here. And then there comes your 16. And then there comes your 22. And now we can see all the straight lines in those windows compared to all the way back when we were at 4.5.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did a really good job on that one. Yeah. And then once again, you were in the shade for the lighting conditions that we've had recently. So you were in the shade. Now your beach scenes come out to be a whole new challenge, don't they? So it obviously does, the light meter does not balance at 1/4 of a second at F22. So it does not. The water's blurry, but it doesn't balance. And then this is your,
I think that was I was supposed to throw away.
and then this is your 250th at F22. And then this is your 250th at F22 also. But see, notice that they're really dark. And then
Right.
here you finally get your balanced light meter. So, we're at 1/8 of a second, 2/50th of a second with an F8. And that 2/50th of a second, we're getting some pretty good detail on the waves down in here. And then here's another one, almost exactly the same, 250 and F8. So we're okay on that one. And this is 1/25th at F11. And the waves are still doing pretty good. 1/60th of a second at F10. And then here you're finally getting into your blurs. So 30th of a second at F20, but your light was fighting against you because we just had too much light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so this is where you could have put the polarizer on, by the way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then that would have gotten rid of some of this glare on the water, depending on your angle, once again, to the water and to the sun.
Mhm.
And then here you are, you got 1/5 of a second. Good. Look at that.
Mhm.
Down there, those breaking waves are just blurred out completely. And then here you changed a little bit, went to something else. And this is an 1/8 of a second again, but can't balance the light meter. And you were finally able to balance the light meter here at a 30th of a second at F25. So what were your challenges on this exercise?
I would say timing the waves, the light outside. There was just a lot of movement going on, and
Mhm.
trying to take a picture of it was hard.
It's hard.
So,
Yeah.
but I do have, there was one funny story. I came home, we have a bird bath in the back. And so I was going to do a continuous overflow on this bird bath and take the pictures. And word to the wise, make sure your battery is charged, because neither one of my batteries were charged. So,
Yes, make sure your battery is charged before you start your exercises. Exactly. Make sure that your battery is charged. Yes. And it's a shame, but I even do that. I'll go to do an exercise and I go outside and it's like, just come on, get your act together, please.
I
Okay.
did have one question though. There was
Yes.
on the waterfall, on the water one, I could not go down to an 8. And I was wondering if it's because I had my lens was a telephoto lens.
An 1/8 of a second.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was because of the light.
Okay.
So you should have been able to get an 1/8 of a second
Okay.
without any problem, but it was probably because of the light. You just had too much light. And so you
Okay.
couldn't get to your 1/8 of a second.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that homework assignment? I think you all did a really good job on it. Congratulations. It's just wonderful to see. And I know you beat your head against a wall and all that stuff, but it's, y'all did a good job. I'm really proud of you. Okay. So lesson 2, let's talk about how to make your life just a little bit easier. Does everybody have your camera?
Mhm.
Yeah. Everybody's got your camera. Okay. There you go. Okay. So on the top of your camera, you have this M mode, S mode, or TV mode if you're Canon, A or AV mode if you're AV if you're Canon, A for everybody else, and you've got this program mode. So I have had you in the M mode for last week's lesson and for the homework assignment that you did. So I'd like you to go into your M mode. So set your camera to M and make sure that your f-stop is 5.6, if you would, please. Everybody's 5.6?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Okay. So in the M mode at 5.6, you know that you have to take your shutter dial and you have to rotate your shutter dial to put your scale right in the middle, correct?
Mhm.
But if you rotate your dial to A or AV, so rotate your dial to A or AV up on the top, So not on the front of the camera. I
Oh.
saw Vicky, that's
Yeah,
your,
right.
that's your autofocus, but up on the top, your A mode. So
Oh.
the A mode is aperture priority. You set the f-stop and the camera balances the light meter for you with the shutter speed. So if you would pick up your camera, put it to your eye and point your camera around the room and just push your shutter button halfway down to activate the light meter and point your shutter or point your camera around the room. And when you point your camera around the room, do you see that your light meter is staying in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah. Is your light meter staying in the middle as you point your camera around the room?
Yep.
Point your camera up at the ceiling or at the light, and you'll see that you now get a faster shutter speed. And point your camera down at the floor, and you see that you get a slower shutter speed. Correct?
Correct.
Correct. Do you see your light meter in the in the viewfinder? Yes,
Yes.
no.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Vicky's shaking her head. Sarah's
Okay,
shaking.
I'm
her
still
head.
trying to get my mode off of M.
Might be a push your button and rotate the dial, Vicky, on your camera.
Yeah, the meter stays balanced in the middle, no matter where you look.
It stays balanced in the middle. Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah. Now, does
it.
everybody see your light meter scale through the viewfinder?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Nikons, you all see your light
I'm
meter
not seeing
scale?
mine.
Okay. Okay, good. So your Nikons don't show you your light meter reading, your light meter scale when you look through the viewfinder, when you're in the A mode or the AV mode, as Canon calls it. Everybody else, Olympus and Sony, you all can see your light meter through the viewfinder?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So when you are in aperture priority, then the light meter is balanced for you. And you can see your light meter if you're in all the cameras except for Nikons. Nikons, you all can't see your light meter reading, right? Or you
Right.
can't see your light meter. Renee,
Right.
do you see yours?
Yeah,
see
it's on the
yours?
screen
Okay.
and in the viewfinder.
And it's in the viewfinder, exactly. So your aperture priority, does anybody see your light meter unbalanced?
No.
No.
Oh,
No, it's
Yeah,
right in the
I do.
middle. Okay. If you ever go into aperture priority and you notice your light meter is not in balance, it's showing up, but it's either to the positive or to the negative side. That's because when you left manual, you might have had an underexposure or an overexposure dialed in. So when you're in aperture priority, if you do notice that, then what you do is you push your plus minus button, and everybody should have a plus minus button on the back of on the outside of their camera somewhere. And Nikon puts it up on top, Canon puts it in the back. So you should be able to push that plus minus button and set yourself back into balance. Now, aperture priority, when would you use aperture priority? So if I were in a field of bluebonnets in the springtime, and it wasn't as bloody hot as it is outside right now, if I were in a field of bluebonnets and I wanted to do just little portraits of bluebonnets with a nice soft background, I could leave my f-stop at 5.6. And now I could just walk around and squat down and just photograph nice little portraits of each little individual bluebonnet bloom with a nice soft background. You all know how to do that. And then if I wanted to do the whole bluebonnet field, I would just rotate my dial, put myself at f22, and then I could do the whole landscape of the bluebonnet field. So aperture priority is where you know what kind of f-stop you want. And then we change the f-stop and let the camera balance the light meter for us with the shutter speed. But we still have to watch the shutter speed. It still matters. it's still either going to blur our photograph or crisp our photograph. So we still have to make sure that we're watching and pay attention to the shutter speed, but we just don't have to do that second dialing everything in. And so aperture priority makes it really simple when you know what kind of f-stop you want. I shoot a lot in aperture priority when I'm just walking around. So I'm walking around out on the street, for instance, and I want to kind of get the whole view of the street, then I might rotate my f-stop to an 8 or a 22 if I have enough light. Then I come to the market and I want to photograph the peaches in the baskets. I take my f-stop to 5.6. And then I walk around a little further along and I watch somebody with their hands and I want to photograph their hands. I'll rotate my f-stop until I get a shutter speed about 1/25 or 2/50. So I'm constantly manipulating my f-stop to change my shutter speed. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it makes it for a lot faster shooting if I want to do that. We will also, believe it or not, do sports in aperture priority. So we'll use Renee's big 100-pound dog playing around in the fountain. Okay, so if we're photographing that 100-pound dog playing in the fountain, we want to stop the motion as much as possible. So I would put my f-stop on a 5.6 or 6.3. So I had a big opening in the aperture. Lots of light would be coming in. And that would show me the fastest shutter speed I could get. So on a day like we've got coming up, that shutter speed could easily be in the, 500 or 1,000th of a second. Apruva, you got a question?
Yeah. So I've been doing like bird photography. So would you recommend like shooting birds with aperture priority or shutter speed priority?
I would shoot birds. I shoot birds a lot with aperture priority. So all I do is if I'm setting my f-stop based on what I need for that bird. And then, if it's a larger bird, f8, if it's a smaller bird, a 6.3. And then if that shutter speed's not enough, then I punch my ISO button and raise my ISO.
Oh, okay.
And then raising that ISO will give me a faster shutter speed.
Okay. I've been mostly shooting with 5.6. So, okay, I'll try the other ones. Yeah.
Go to f8. It's a lesson that took me a long time to learn, but go to f8 if you're photographing birds, because especially with a telephoto lens, that's a fat enough f-stop for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So aperture priority has a whole lot of uses. So you can use it for birds, you can use it for sports, you can use it for you can use it for, the dog playing in the fountain. So aperture priority has a lot of uses to it. Now, shutter priority, on the other hand, is your S or your TV. So rotate your dial to S or to TV. And now on S or TV in Canons, S for everybody else. Now you are in charge of the shutter speed. So your front dial for almost everybody now controls your shutter speed, but it might be your back dial. So test your camera. Which one controls your shutter speed now? One should do nothing and one should control your shutter speed. Which one controls your shutter speed now?
Back dial.
Okay, good. That's what's called your command dial, by the way. So that when you're in aperture priority, that changes your f-stop, that dial. And when you're in shutter priority, that changes your shutter speed. So put your put your shutter speed, we're in shutter priority, put your shutter speed on 1/60th of a second, please. Sixtieth of a second? Yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Now point your camera down at your floor. And is your light meter balanced or is your f-stop blinking at you?
F-stop's blinking.
F-stop's blinking.
F-stop's blinking.
F-stop's blinking?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Your f-stop blinking at you is trying to say, I will take this picture if you want me to, but I don't have enough light. It's trying to warn you that I don't have enough light with what you're trying to do right now. Point your camera over toward the window or toward the lamp with your 60th of a second. And now do you have an f-stop that's not blinking?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So now it's saying, okay, I can use 60th of a second. I can do this if you want to. And this is the f-stop I'll give you. Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good, good. So shutter priority is when you know definitely positively what shutter speed you need. And then it will set the f-stop for you. Rotate your shutter speed for me to 250. Everybody have 250?
Yes.
Yeah. Now point your camera out the window or at the lamp. And is your f-stop blinking at you or is your light meter showing up?
That stops blinking.
It's blinking at you. So it's trying to warn you. It's trying to tell you, I don't have enough light. I'll take the picture if you want me to, because if you click the shutter button, it'll take the picture for you. But it's trying to warn you that I've got a problem here. I need you to pay attention, photographer with the brain. I got a problem. So when you're doing that with shutter priority, you've got to pay attention to whether that f-stop is blinking at you or not. Point your camera at that window and keep rotating your shutter speed until the f-stop quits blinking at you. Keep rotating until the f-stop quits blinking at you. And where does it quit blinking at you?
180.
1/80th of a second. Good. Where does it quit blinking at you?
Am I
we
supposed to
go.
have my ISO on automatic or?
No,
that's
no.
at 100?
Your ISO is supposed to be at 100 for your camera.
That's what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you've got your ISO at auto, all it's going to do is it's going to fluctuate to keep you where you say you want to be.
Yeah, that's what it was doing.
Okay, good. So what shutter speed did you get when it finally quit blinking?
125. I'm in a dark
125th.
room.
Good. Yeah, it's bright where you are. Yeah.
No.
I got it at
100,
60.
yeah.
100th. Good, good. So you see that if you're in shutter priority, this is where you know what shutter speed you want. And now it'll give you that shutter speed, but whether you can balance your light meter or not is a whole other issue. So shutter priority is where you know good and well what shutter speed you need. So there are certain times when I would use shutter priority. So 60th of a second shutter speed stops human movement, just people looking at you, like, smiling, blinking their eyes, that type of stuff. So I might use 60th of a second shutter priority if I were just walking around out on the patio and taking people pictures at a party. So then I don't have to balance my light meter. It keeps me at 60th of a second the whole time, but the f-stop is just going to fluctuate. If it's too dark on the patio, then I might have to raise my ISO if the f-stop is blinking at me. But that's when I would use shutter priority. Sometimes in bird photography, we'll use shutter priority, or in sports, once again, when we know what shutter speed we need, but then we will usually use an auto ISO to keep us at the f-stop we always need also. So that becomes a little bit more complicated. Okay. And then the places that I do not want you to use, I've taught you how to use manual, I've taught you how to use shutter priority, and I've taught you how to use aperture priority. The places I do not want you to use, and you don't even need to rotate your dial because it'll be just a waste of time for us right now. I don't want you to use program because the program mode does not stand for professional. It is program mode. And what it is trying to do is get you as close to 60th of a second, because most human movement stops at 60. And F8, most stuff will be in focus. So it just tries to put you as close to 60th of a second in F8 as possible. And then on the top of your camera, you will have all kinds of other different settings This camera, for instance, has, scene mode where they can go in and change different things. Anybody have on the top of your camera on that dial a little landscape or a little mountain or something like that? Anybody have that on the top of your dial?
Mm-mm.
My
little-
Rebel had that, but.
The
this
Rebel
one-
had that, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anybody have that on the top of their camera?
Mm-mm.
No, so that's just the landscape mode, and the landscape mode just puts you in F22 because you know that. So you already know the landscape mode on that one. So those other little modes on the top, you know how to get there, but you know how to get there now through manual aperture priority or shutter priority. Nobody in this class has a Rebel, so I can't show the example of it, but the Canon Rebel, if you push your menu button, you see how many menus you have on the back of your camera. Just punch your menu and you see how many menus going across and how many menus going down. You have lots and lots of menus. The old Canon Rebel, if you were in manual aperture priority or shutter priority, it gave you 11 menus. But if you went into P or any of those other, what they call artistic modes, like the lady with the hat or the landscape mode or any of that stuff, it only showed you 5 menus. So where you bought the camera with 11 plus 1, it only showed you 5 if you went into the auto menus. That means it took away 6 menus that you paid for and didn't even know you had.
Wow.
So it takes away features from you that you may not even realize it's taking away from you. So that's why we don't want to use any of those artistic modes. You've also spent 2 classes with me, and Renee, you're doing it again with me. And so you all know how to maintain your f-stops and your shutter speeds and how to change your f-stops and your shutter speeds. So don't go into all those other little hokey modes, okay? Just stay where you are in aperture priority, shutter priority, or manual. Okay, so that gives you a little bit. Now, some things that I do want you to go into. Oh, by the way, this is an important thing. All of you all on your cameras will have a little green dot or blue dot. The R cameras have blue now. They'll have a little green dot, solid green dot, solid green dot, solid green dot, or solid green focus squares. All of you all have those. If you see that solid green dot or the solid green focus squares or the Canon Rs have blue focus squares, that tells you that you are in focus. If that green dot is bouncing back and forth, or if those squares are bouncing around the camera, it's looking for something to focus on. So make sure that those little squares are solid or those little green dots are solid so that you know that it's locked onto something in focus. So some features that I set you all on when you did your homework assignment and you set your camera, let me explain to you why I set you on those features. So we've got in Canon, we've got servo, and in your R cameras, it just says servo. It doesn't say AI servo anymore. Nikon's, it says CL up on the top. And everybody else, Sony and Olympus, it says AFC. So you all see that on your back menu or your back display panel? You see where we've set that for you? Everybody see that? Yeah? Okay. What that means is that when you have your shutter button halfway down and you're focusing on a subject, as long as you are on AFC, CL and Nikon, or servo and Canon, the camera is constantly going back and forth and refocusing on the subject. If you happen to set this on AFS, S in Nikon, or single in Canons, the camera would focus once, stay there, and if your subject moved or you moved, it would still stay focused on that point in space. And not until you raised your finger up and put your finger back down would it refocus. So on birds, this is super important. On kids and dogs, this is super important because the camera is going to go back and constantly refocus on your subject. And you'll actually hear the camera kind of auto-focusing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that's a good thing. So autofocus continuous, CL in your Nikons, or servo in your Canons. The rapid release, the icon on the back of your camera, that's the 3 pieces of paper. 3 pieces of paper is when we are shooting at just moderate speed. So I can hold the button down and raise my finger up and down, and I can just shoot at a moderate speed. 3 pieces of paper. This for you Nikons would be your CL, by the way. Or you might also have this 3 pieces of paper icon on the back of the camera. And then the 3 pieces of paper with the H, if you have this one, is that if we hold the button down, the camera will fire as fast as it possibly can. So the 3 pieces of paper with the H is where the camera fires as fast as it possibly can. So when I'm shooting, I keep it between the 3 pieces of paper. But then when I notice that action is going to start, I punch that button, and I've got on my cameras the little 3 pieces of paper icon that I can punch, rotate the dial, and I go to the 3 pieces of paper with the H, and then I get ready to fire really fast. So if I'm photographing a hawk on a post, and if the hawk leans over and poops, anytime a hawk leans over and poops, it's going to fly. So when it leans over and poops, I move my camera to the 3 pieces of paper with the H, recompose the scene so that there's room for the hawk to fly, and I get ready for that hawk to fly. So the 3 pieces of paper for an H is, as long as we hold the button down, the camera's going to fire as fast as it possibly can. Make sense? And then the last thing is I set you all on one focus point versus all of the focus points. We should control where the camera focuses within reason. Now, with your mirrorless cameras, we're getting some really cool focusing capabilities, such as eye focus and that type of thing. But I'll give you a good example of where I was using a cluster of focus points. I was using a big cluster of focus points the other day, testing the R7 on a very small butterfly. And when I got, everything looked fine, but when I got back and put all the pictures on the computer, the cluster on that very small butterfly was focusing everywhere from its wings to its face, to its wings, to its face, to its wings, to its face. So if I would have been using one focus point and thinking, I would have put one focus point on the butterfly's face, and then his face would have been in focus. But as it is, I had most of the photographs were on the wing and not on the face of the butterfly. So Animal Eye on the new mirrorless cameras allows me to focus on the eye of the animal, which is exactly what we want to do. But we still have to pay attention. That same butterfly had an artificial eye on the tip of its wing, which is a detractor so that the bird grabs the artificial eye and not the real body of the butterfly. The camera kept focusing on the artificial eye and not the real eye of the butterfly. So you are the smart one. You are the one with the brain. And I think that we need to nudge those cameras periodically by making sure that they're focusing in exactly the right spot. So changing those focus modes, we need to be able to do that fairly fast and understand how your camera focuses in the various focus modes. So everybody on one focus point right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay. So you need to know how to move that around, how to move it around. Apurva, on your camera, you can do it with that big dial on the back. You can do it with a little toggle. You can do it with your front dial. So you've got all different kinds of ways that you can move those focus points around on the back of the camera. So you need to figure out, how do you move your focus points around, and how can we move them around fast in the event that we need them?
Yep.
So that's why I've set you on those settings, and they're good things to use. Now, the Nikons, before we go to the next one about flash, Nikon's cameras. Let me see. So that's Vicky, you've got the Nikon, and
Mhm.
then Jackie, you've got your Nikon also. On yours, we need to, in this pencil menu right here, we need to go to the E1, if you all have got E1, and where it says flash sync speed at 250 right here. I think you both have this on your camera, if I'm not mistaken. Then we need to be sure to go up here, go over, and then go up here to 320 auto FP. Does that make sense for both of you all
Mhm.
on the Nikons?
So
And
I'm
then you
looking-
see where it says rear right here. So Nikons, we also need to push the flash controller button, which is right here on the front of your Nikons. And most of your cameras, your flash controller button is what you use to pop up your flash. So on the Olympus, on the Sony, I need you all to also pop up your flash with your flash button and then rotate to rear on your flash. So Renee, does that work on your camera? And Sarah, does that work on your camera?
I'm kind of lost. So this is a real stupid question. I have, without putting on a flash attachment, you're saying I have a built-in flash in my camera?
Do you or don't you? If
I
you
don't
don't,
think
then
so.
this won't
No.
help then.
Yeah,
No?
no, I don't.
Okay, you don't. Okay, then on the back of your camera, Sarah, you're going to go into your flash menu. And you can even do it with your icon on your display panel. You might even have a little lightning bolt button on your camera. And when you push that, I want you to go to rear or slow rear. And then Renee, how about on your camera? Renee's off camera right now. Okay.
So where am I looking for the lightning bolt?
On your back display panel, you should have a lightning bolt. One of your icons should be a lightning bolt. You know, when you look at all your little icons on your screen,
Yeah,
is one of them a lightning bolt?
not that I'm finding.
Not that you're finding. Okay, then it might be in one of your menus. So you can just make note of that on your menus. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Renee, we were talking about the lightning bolt setting on your camera. Do you see it on your back display panel, or do you have a pop-up flash on that camera?
Yeah, I have a pop-up flash, so when I
Okay.
turn it on, when
Yeah,
the
pop
flash
that.
comes up.
Good. And then when you pop that flash up, also you've got an icon on the back of your camera and you need to move it to rear or slow rear. Vicky, did you find that?
I found my bracketing
Good.
flash. I'm trying to get
Yeah.
down to it.
Super. So it's the rear or the slow rear. And I'll show you all why we did that in just a second.
So I have a slow 2.
Don't go slow too. Do you have a rear or just a plain slow?
I know I have fill in, I have red eye, I have no flash, slow 2, and then a full.
Do slow two then.
Okay,
Yeah.
in manual.
Okay. And Vicky and Jackie, how about on your cameras?
I'm still working on my bracketing flash and trying to get down to it.
Okay.
So I could set it to rear.
You can set it to rear. Super. Leave it there. That's great. And then do you have, Jackie, on your camera, do you have an E1 custom menu in your pencil menu?
No, I don't have
No.
that.
Okay. Okay. No problem. That might just be on the other one there.
Okay, it was 1/320.
1320 FP. And then Canons, you all don't need to worry about this. Everybody good?
Okay, the only thing I'm finding is a 120, not a 1/320.
That's okay. You got a 120, but do you have one that has an auto FP next to it?
Let me look.
Flash sync speed? Do you have one that has FP on it?
I'm looking.
Shouldn't be too hard. Nope.
No, but I'll look. So I'm looking for an auto FP.
Yeah, you're looking for an auto FP. Okay. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go to shutter priority. That was the TV or the S for all of you all. And I want you to pop your flash up. And Sarah, you don't have a flash on the top of your camera. I don't
I
think
don't have
the
one on mine either.
Yeah, and I don't think the RP has one. Linda, you don't have one on the top of your camera as well. Linda, if you want to put your flash on, you're more than welcome to, though, if it has batteries in it. Okay, but
I'll be right
otherwise
back.
you don't
I'll
have
be
to.
right back. I have a flash.
You have a flash? Okay, good. Go get it. Okay, so when you would use a flash is if you don't have enough shutter speed, but you do want to add a little bit more light to your scene. And so with your pop-up flashes in shutter priority, I want you to set your shutter speed to 60th of a second. So with your top mounted flash or with your pop-up flash, set your shutter speed to 60th of a second. Okay, everybody at 60th of a second in shutter priority. And you're probably seeing your f-stop blinking at you. And Apurva, when you put your top mounted flash on, I want you to set the back of it to TTNL. And the same thing, Linda, when you get that flash turned on, set the mode to TTNL or ETTNL. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, everybody else with your pop-up flashes, you all are at what's called TTNL, electronic through the lens metering. So that flash now knows how far to send light based on where you focused. So wherever you focused, your flash now knows to send light to that point. Your pop-up flash will send light about 8 or 10 feet. If you had a top mounted flash, it will send light 30 to 60 feet. So it'll send light much, much further than that. So with your flash popped up or turned on, if you've got it, shutter priority 60th of a second, photograph like a little statue in your room or your lamp or something like that. Just click on it one time. Just click and photograph with it. And Vicky, no pop-up flash?
No, I don't have a pop-up flash.
No flash, no pop-up flash on that camera?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Everybody else, Jackie, you got pop-up flash on yours. Yeah.
I
And
do,
point your
yeah.
flash forward, Sarah, if you would. Yeah, pointing it up at the ceiling, bounces light off the ceiling. Yeah, and TTNL. Okay, so what you should see is with that pop-up flash, it'll do a pretty good job just on something fairly close. It'll light something up pretty close. Your big flash is mounted on the top of the camera. If they're set to TTNL or TTNL, then when you photograph something, you should notice that it just lights up that subject that you photographed and not the entire room. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So it just goes out. What you're telling it to do on TTNL or ETTNL, you're telling it just go out to the subject I'm focused on, send light. And it does that all based on your light meter. If you rotate your, not yet, I won't have you do that yet. So if you notice in this photograph down at the bottom, there are some fairly harsh shadows right there. So that tells you that there are shadows that are falling on her face. So by using the flash, I'm able to light the shadows up on her face. And so we don't get a heavy shadow effect on her face. So even though we would have heavy shadows on her face, the flash is able to light up her face. So simply by using the flash, it was able to light up her face. You see this young guy right here, I'm using the flash on him as well, but it doesn't look like I'm using the flash. And that's because I'm in aperture priority on this one. And the aperture priority, I've set the f-stop. What f-stop am I using? What's it look like I'm using?
A small one, a short one.
Oh.
6?
Yeah.
6 or 8.
So like 5.6 or, even 4 if I had to, because he's fairly little. But by positioning him where he is against the lighted holiday, festive lights, and then using the flash ever so gently on his face on TTNL, it doesn't look like I'm lighting him up, but I am. I'm just lighting him up a little bit. And this is a word too on using your flash or else, and also setting up your photographs. If you've got lighted backgrounds, like at a party or some sort of festive event or some sort of restaurant or something like that, position your subjects against them. Once again, 8, 10, 15, 20 feet away, blow those lights out of focus. And now those lights give you a nice background on your scene. 60th of a second with the flash popped up is what I needed to photograph this genet in Africa. So this is this cool little mongoose animal, looks like a cat, but it's a mongoose, comes out at night, clams along in the rafters and eats insects up in the thatched roof of the restaurant. I'm not going to pass up this animal, but it's at night, it's dark. I mean, it's not solid dark, but it's dark. 60th of a second, focus on the genet and use my flash. Now I'm telling my flash, this is how far away I want you to go. I'm not telling you to light the whole scene up, flash. I'm just telling you to light up this genet. And then that 60th of a second is going to stop the motion. So simple little photograph to take, just using your pop-up flash or your top-mounted flash, whichever one you want to do. So that's when I would use shutter priority, 60th of a second. Same
So
thing
what
in this.
about-
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What about like preventing red eye using the flash?
Preventing red eye using the flash. The good thing about Lightroom or Photoshop is that we have red eye, that we can
Right.
get rid of the red eye later on. But kids, cats, dogs, we get red eye when we use the flash. If
Okay.
they're not looking directly at the flash, then we won't get red eye. You notice in this little genet's eye, there's a little bit of a reflection back there.
Mhm.
But if we can get them to look away from the camera or top mounted flash, bounce it off the ceiling, then we can get red or red eye or clean it up later on in software.
Okay.
So I just clean it up later on software because it's gotten so good in software. This is another example of when I would use 60th of a second shutter priority and pop the flash up or use the top mounted flash. Positioned her against the lights in the background. We have these kind of lights everywhere now out in the night scenes. 60th of a second. This is going to stop her. And then the flash is going to go out, hit her because that's where we focus, turn off. And then we're going to get those lights behind her. So simple and easy scene. One I would definitely use 60th of a second in shutter priority. Now rotate your camera dial on the top to A or AV and leave your flash on or turned on or leave your flash popped up. Now point your camera at somewhere in the scene. I don't care where, just point your camera in the room. Do you get a slow shutter speed?
Yes.
Yes, good, good. Yes. Confirmation, yes. Slow
Yeah.
shutter
Yes.
speed?
Mhm.
Yep. Yep,
Yes.
good,
Yes.
good. Anybody with flash popping up getting 60 or anything like that? Nope. Everybody good? Okay, good. What we did when we moved your flash, for those of you that were looking for it to slow or to rear, is we turned off a function that was set by the camera's manufacturer. Nikon, Sony, and Olympus all do this. Canon does not do this, but Nikon, Sony, and Olympus all do it. From the factory, if you're in aperture priority and you pop up your flash, then whether you like it or not, you're going to have to use 60th of a second. One of those reasons, again, where maybe we won't mess up your photograph. But by moving you to rear or slow rear, I turned that off. So that's the reason why I turned that off for you, is by doing that. Okay. So now you're in aperture priority. Another example of where we might use aperture priority in the flash is something like this. So I get to the Cadillac Ranch thing up in Amarillo, Texas. I need to photograph it for an assignment that I'm on. The problem is when I get there, it's freezing cold, blowing snow, and the overcast lighting conditions, everything is horrible. So I wait around for the snow to stop, and I don't know how in the heck I'm going to make this place look good. So these people come up with this cool dog, and it had the pink leash and collar. So I said, well, okay, cool. I can put the dog in front of these things. And so I asked them if I could do it, and they were cooperative. I put my focus point on the dog. So move that focus point. Remember when I talked about moving focus points just a little bit ago? Focused on the dog. And since flash goes to focus point, I twisted the top of my flash, top-minded flashes, so that the flash would go over and hit the dog. And when I clicked the shutter, flash fired, flash turned off, and aperture priority, because the flash is only going as far as the dog. The spillover of the flash went out and lit up the sparkly stuff, metallic stuff in the spray paint of the cars. So that's when I saw that if I use the flash on these cars, I can bring out all this color. So sometimes the flash is going to do things that are unexpected, and it just makes it fun to do. So the flash is a neat thing to use, and a top mounted flash is a nice gadget to have. It would be your 430s and your Canons, your 500 SB and your Nikons. And then another way to add light is with a reflector. Does anybody own a reflector?
Yeah,
Yeah, you got one in the bag somewhere? Yeah,
somewhere.
okay. So a reflector is a shiny disc. I'll show it to you in just a moment. And it is silver on one side, gold on the other side, and it reflects light from the sun or from your flash even up on the subject. So in this photograph, the reflector is right underneath the left corner of this woman, and it's reflecting sunlight from the window up on her face. It's silver because she's got a rosy complexion. I'm more olive, so you would use the gold on my face as opposed to the silver on my face. So whether your subject is more white, I'm not going to say whiter, but whether your subject is more cooler, you would use the silver color. If your subject is warmer, you would use the orange color, the golden color. Or if you wanted to add more warmth, you would use the golden color. Or if you wanted to take away too much warmth, you would add the silver color. So a reflector looks like this, $29.95 from Amazon, silver on one side, gold on the other side. And then the 24-inch is a really nice size. I use this a lot in the garden for flower photography. It's beautiful on people's faces, but it's really, really pretty in the garden on flowers. I use it a lot on macro photography as well because it's reflecting sunlight. In your second homework assignment, I won't see you for that second homework assignment, but I'm going to ask you to take a piece of cardboard and cover it with aluminum foil, and that will act as a reflector as well. And it will also, you could use your sun shield out of your car, and it will act as a reflector as well. So you can use either a reflector, or if you want to just play around with cardboard covered with aluminum foil or your sun shield. If you buy one of these, again, buy the 24-inch. They twist and fold down into a little disc, so you can just throw them in your camera bag and then you pull them out when you need them. Here's a before and after with a reflector. So you see what harsh shadows we're dealing with. And then I took the reflector and put it right behind the young lady and reflected sunlight up on her. So the reflector is over on the left of the right-hand photograph. You see what a big difference that reflector makes? So sometimes when the light's just bad, then that reflector really comes in handy. The center of your reflector, this little one right here, this is a diffuser. So in the event that you were doing your homework assignment and the sun were too intense, you could put the diffuser over the subject and between the subject and the sun and block the shadows so the shadows wouldn't be as harsh. So you can use that as well. So good ways that you can add light. Questions on those?
Are you using an assistant with that reflector? Or are you able to do that by yourself?
I'm leaning up against a wall.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, usually I don't have an assistant, this type of stuff. So it's just leaning up against a wall.
Okay.
Yeah, just be creative. Put it where you need to. Yeah. So another thing that's really important in photography is this thing called flat to the film plane. Now, we don't have a film plane anymore. We have a sensor, but this phrase is still flat to the film plane. Your depth of field is absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. So if I want to make sure that all of these water drops on this calla lily are in focus, then I line my camera up with the flat plane of those water drops, and I keep the water drops absolutely parallel with my camera. And then that way I maximize a shallow depth of field, because your depth of field is absolutely parallel to your camera. So if I tilt my camera, my depth of field is cutting through my subject. And if I tilt my camera, my depth of field is cutting through my subject. So if using a shallow f-stop, we want to make sure that we get all of the subject in focus, then we have to keep our subject absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. And you notice even this way with the shallow depth of field I'm using, the interior of the flower is still out of focus. So this is an f4 as an example. And then here you see the entire butterfly is in focus, because I've made sure that my camera and the butterfly to the face of the butterfly and the antenna are all parallel. So it's called flat to the film plane. So keeping everything absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. So it comes in handy with things like this. So the caimans here, I'm using an f8 and focusing on the beak of the caiman's snout. And you notice to about that big tooth right there at an f8 is in focus. So you see that eye is out of focus, back of the throat's out of focus, definitely body's out of focus. Pull the boat sideways so that the caiman is absolutely parallel to my
Oh,
camera.
wow. It's all in focus.
And now my f8 looks like the whole thing's in focus, doesn't it? And so this is a good example of flat to the film plane. So looking straight down his snout, f8, parallel to him, f8, flat to the film plane. So play with that in your homework assignment as well, getting something flat to the film plane. And then your tripods, if you don't own one already or you own one that you hate, if you hate your tripod, it's the wrong tripod. So if you love your tripod, it's the right tripod. And this is the tripod that I recommend. It's a MePhoto Globetrotter classic carbon fiber tripod. And somebody asked me about it the other day and we were emailing about it. MePhoto Globetrotter classic carbon fiber. They have a classic and they have a not classic. Buy the classic. I don't think the new one is as good. Get the classic model. The neat thing about this tripod is it is about 3 pounds in weight. So it's super, super lightweight. It extends to way past my height, and I'm 5'6". So it extends to way past my 5'6" height. So it extends as well as what we need it. It comes with a ball head already on it. And that ball head is what we use if we're photographers, because we've got one knob. We position the camera where we need it on the tripod, tighten it back up. And then on top of that, it comes with the best quality plate system, which is called an Arca Swiss plate. So it comes with one plate, and then you can buy more plates for it. And this is the Arca Swiss plate. Once you get it on your camera and you Allen wrench it onto your camera, then it doesn't come off. We don't take this off the bottom of the camera once you put it on. If you are using a Larung lens like Apurva for your bird photography, then we would put one on the tripod collar, a base plate as well, and then we always have it. So you'd need, if you have 2 cameras, you would need 2 base plates, 1 for each camera. If you have a long lens, then you would also put a base plate on one of your long lenses if it has a tripod collar. So this tripod, $319, comes with everything you need. And then once again, it's only 3 pounds. And if we fold it all the way up, it's about 1.5 feet long, which means when you travel, you can put it right on the top of your suitcase, zip your suitcase up. It didn't add much weight to your suitcase, and it doesn't take up much room. So to me, it is the best quality tripod out there. And
I have
Mine
a-
arrives today.
pardon?
Mine arrives today. I'm
Yay,
excited
very
for it.
good. Very
Thank you.
good. Very
I have
good.
a Peak Design one.
You have a one
A Peak Design.
Peak
carbon
design
fiber.
tripod, and do you like it as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
carbon
good.
fiber, super
Yeah.
lightweight.
Yeah, it's so totally lightweight and carbon fiber. Yeah. If you love your tripod, then you've got the right tripod. If you hate your tripod, you got the wrong one. Yeah. Okay. And then lenses, I have a whole camera called What Lens Should I Use? But your wide angle lenses, your real wide lenses, these would be your 10 to 22s. These would be your 7 to
That's really
14s.
wide.
These would be your 16 to 35s or your 15 to 35s. These would be for your, the Olympus one, for instance, Renee, yours was, I think is like a 7 to 14. These are the lenses that see almost 180 degrees. And these are what we use for our landscape photography. We shoot these angling up and angling down. If we angle up, the sky looks bigger. If we angle down, the foreground looks bigger. So these super wide angle lenses, we angle up and down. We don't use these to photograph people because people are going to appear heavier. So these are for landscape photography. They focus close. And another thing about them is their depth of fields are very wide. So this is why we use them in landscape photography. So your super wide angles are what we use in landscape photography. But what other lenses you buy are based on what you're going to photograph. The following little video is, or GIF, is every lens I could get my hands on one day, going all the way from 10 millimeters to 500 millimeters. See, at 500 millimeters, I can see the house, but at 10 millimeters, I can't even see it. Every lens that you buy or that the camera manufacturers make is a tool. They made them for a certain reason. So we don't buy a lens simply because your friend said it was the best lens. If you're going to buy a lens, I suggest maybe you rent it first to see whether you really like it and whether you really need it. If you want a specific lens for a trip, maybe you rent it for that trip instead of buying it for the trip. And Photo Rental Source over on Kirby is a fabulous place to rent your lenses from. So before you buy a new lens, maybe you rent it for a couple of weeks and see whether you use it or whether you really like it. Same thing holds true for upgrading your camera body. Maybe you rent one first to see whether you really do need that new camera body or not. But in Dallas and Austin, we've got different places we can rent camera equipment. So consider renting an equipment before buying it, just to make sure you really need it. I wanted to show you the depth of the background. This fuzzy background is called bokeh, and the quality of the fuzzy background or the soft background is all based on the construction of the lens. So one day I hung this ornament in my office, and that's the window out of my office looking out over the street. And this is an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. And I put it at f4 and focused as close as I could. And this is what the background looks like with this 18 to 55 millimeter lens. F4 on a 50 millimeter lens, though, looks like this. So F4 on this 50 millimeter lens makes my background even softer. See the difference? And the F4 on a 70 to 200 millimeter lens, this is in the Canon professional lens lineup, it makes the background even softer. And that's because of the construction of the lens. So the way this lens is constructed, the 70 to 200 millimeter f4 by Canon. Nikon makes one as well. Sony makes one as well. Olympus makes one as well. It's designed to give us that pure, clean background. But you see, each one of these is f4, but the quality of that bokeh, the quality of that blown out background is all based on the quality of the lens. Questions on that one?
That's interesting. I never realized that.
Yes, and it's all based on the quality of the lens. So when they're talking about a lens, says it has an excellent bokeh, the same thing with starbursts, the F22 where we put the starburst on the sun. The same thing with the F22, the quality of that starburst. Sometimes that starburst is just like super defined based on the lens, and other times it's soft and mushy. Yeah, so it's all based on the quality of the lens. So that's everything that I've got for you all. Thank you very much. You have been a fabulous class. Any questions on what I've covered today?
No, I have a question on your upcoming classes.
Yes.
So on your website, you do list a Hill County bird photography workshop in September.
Yes.
Can I get more details on that? I mean, I sent you an email, but I haven't. I don't think you've got a chance to respond to that.
Oh, okay. So it's at a location here in Houston. It's in Tomball, Texas. It's at a location in Tomball, and they have about 15 or 20 hummingbird feeders. And so there should be a lot of ruby throats that we can photograph. And so in that 4-hour or 3-hour period of time, whatever class is, 2.5 hours, then this would give you a lot of an opportunity to photograph those hummingbirds.
Okay. Do I send you an email to get more information? Or
yeah, if you need more information, or when you register, they will send you the exact location once you register.
Oh, where's the registration information? I didn't see it on your website.
It's on my website under classes, hummingbird photography.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll look for it then. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's through Precision Camera, so they will send you the exact location once you register, but it's in Tomball, Texas.
Okay, sounds good.
So coming up, classes that I have, intentional camera movement, I think that's on Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken. This is where we move the camera to make abstract photos. It is a lot of fun. And then crystal ball photography, where we photograph through a crystal ball. Landscape photography is coming up, where we photograph landscapes. And then if you want to travel with me, lots of travel photography coming up as well. Linda's going to Northern Ireland with me, so we get to travel together. And then just yesterday, I posted a creative workshop in Rockport, Texas, December 8th through 10th. That's Thursday through Saturday. 3 days of doing creative photography in a retreat setting. So 3 days of working on exercises, showing your work, critiquing other people's work, seeing what everybody else did with the same exercise. And I just posted that on the website yesterday.
What level of photographer would that particular class be for? I mean, it sounds like maybe a little bit advanced.
It's a little bit advanced, but I get all kinds of levels. And, I work with you based on what your level is. The same thing that I do, when we do the international photo tours. I work on everybody based on what your level is. The good thing about it is it forces you to do something, and then you get to see what everybody else is doing.
Right.
And I think that is a fabulous way to learn. So even if you do get yourself in over your head, you're not going to drown. Yeah. Yeah. So if anything, it just shows you, oh my gosh, I need to learn. But there's so much to learn, just so many little things that we learn in that workshop. It's really a lot of fun. Yeah. And I prefer also, just a simple selfish me, I prefer to have people that I've already had in the class, because I know you all. It only takes 8 to 10 people. So if you all get in there, then I know who you all are, and I don't have to deal with a stranger who hadn't had this and doesn't know what I'm talking about. So I prefer to deal with you all that I've already had and I've taught. Yeah.
FYI, Kathy, on the Sony, I had my camera on silent shooting.
Yes.
And evidently with the Sony on silent shooting, it turns off a lot of other stuff,
Ah.
including the flash,
Oh,
which
okay.
I just learned.
See
That's how
what,
come I couldn't find stuff. I had to take it off silent.
interesting. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And that's where we just have to know what that machine does. We have to learn what that machine does in our machine, not everybody
Right.
else's machine,
Right,
our
right, right.
machine. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you all very much. I hope to see you in another class one day soon. You've got all my contact information at the bottom of your handout. Email me anytime when you're buying equipment. If you want my advice, I will gladly give you my advice on buying equipment. If you've got any questions about why something doesn't work, email me anytime. And then if you're on Facebook, make friends with me on Facebook. That way we can keep in touch. Same thing on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, you like me, I like you back. That way we can stay in touch with each other.
Well, I'll see you Thursday.
I will see. Good. I'll see you in class
Yeah.
on Thursday then.
Okay.
I love that.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Okay. It
Thank
was
you.
good having you all. Thank you very much. You were a wonderful
Thank
class.
you.
I appreciate
It
it.
was great.
Okay.
It was great.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.